Hello, welcome to Community Corner. My name is DeWitt Taylor, and my two friends are.
Hello, my name is Aaron Connie Castle.
Good afternoon, I'm Ryan Nicholas Gray.
Today, our guest is Christine Stoffel, factory advisor for the campus radio station at Oakland University. She teaches communication classes and thus have the skills so important to guide training and provide oversight for the radio shows produced at WXOU 88.3 FM. I met her 9 years ago, and we worked together since then. She understood my abilities and supported my desire as a DJ. I have a radio show called the Motor City Music Matters Variety Show. Please welcome my guest, Christine Stoffel.
Christine, hello, welcome to our show, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Welcome.
Now, Christine, my dear, tell us a little bit about yourself growing up and your family.
All right, well, I consider it growing up in the southeastern Michigan area, Rochester area. I was actually born in Cleveland, Ohio, but we moved here when I was 5 years old. So I went to Hamlin Elementary School, Ruther Middle School, Rochester High School, and then I did college at Oakland University. And so I'm really familiar with this area, and I actually lived in Lake Orion for a period of time. That's where we're based out of right now. And so, yeah, this has been where I have established my roots.
Cool. Tell us about your schooling.
Schooling, okay. Well, I've got a bachelor's degree from Oakland University in communication. And when I was there, I was focusing on media, specifically radio. I thought I wanted to go into radio at that time. But I decided before I graduated that I'd rather teach. So right after that, I went to Central Michigan University for a master's degree in broadcast law. And now I'm working on a PhD in media studies at Wayne State, and I should be done in about 2 years.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Nice.
Now, Christine, did you see a college degree? And so what studies did you focus on when you were in college to learn?
Well, when I was at Oakland University, communication is sort of a broad field, and so you can study anything from different cultures to the differences between men and women, just all kinds of different communication, and you have to take all of that. But when I was there, I focused on media. So, what does media do to people? How does media affect your ideas, your decisions, that kind of thing. And then as far as hands-on, I did a lot of radio and television. So I was also a volunteer like David is at WXOU. I had my own radio show when I was a student. And I also worked for their TV station, which was OUTV. And I was just basically a production assistant for them.
What types of careers have you had at OU?
Careers at OU? Well, I teach in the communication department, and so I teach a variety of classes, one of them being public speaking. I also do some of the radio broadcasting classes, broadcast announcing, advanced radio production. I teach classes in media effects. And then I also have another area there where I teach health communication, where I talk about health, risk, and crisis issues. And then, of course, there's the radio station. I oversee the radio station, which is a big part of my job there. And I'm considered what's called a faculty advisor, which means I teach, but then I also give advice to the volunteers and the paid employees of WXOU.
What brought you to Oakland University?
Is the location. When I was applying for colleges initially, I applied to Michigan State as one of the places because I sort of thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. It was one of the things I thought I wanted to do. And then I also didn't really know. And at 18, I didn't feel old enough to move out, away from my parents and be on my own. I didn't trust myself to be dedicated to studies. So I felt like if I stayed at Oakland University and lived with my parents, not only could I save money for them and myself, but it would keep me sort of on track. And so I chose Oakland, honestly, because it was only 10 minutes from my parents' house and I could keep living there. And I'm glad I made that decision because it's a decent school. I really enjoy it. And then as far as coming back to work there, it was sort of a shot in the dark. I wrote a letter to the chair of the communication department, and I had been on this email list that I had noticed through the emails that WXOU at the time, this was before your time, David, was losing its funding, and it didn't seem to have dedication, and it just was falling apart. And so my letter said, if you hire me, I'll be the person that fixes the station and sort of recesses, brings it back to life. I heard nothing for a whole year. And then out of the blue, I got a call and got hired. And so that's how I got back into Oakland.
Okay, and so you fixed up the station like you said, right?
Yeah, when I first walked into the station or the university to sign my contract as an employee, the Oakland Post, which is the student newspaper, had a headline that said WXOU loses all of its funding. And the reason why it said that was because the students who were running at the time failed to go to the meetings where the funding was going to be kept.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, I'm starting this job here, and here my radio station is losing its funding. A secondary thing that was happening was this Christian conglomerate that's on the nonprofit area called K-Love was trying to buy the station from the university. So we had lost our funding as a student organization. We had a company basically that was offering the university about $1 million to buy the frequency. And so that was my first job, was to keep the station a college resource and then start building it from the ground up. Okay. And luckily, it worked. And so we're still here today.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Whoa, blow me away.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, Christine, please share with us how you became the University XOU facility advisor.
Well, I think the reason, familiarity, because I was a student there and a volunteer there, when I left to get my master's degree, it wasn't too long. It was only 2 years that I was gone. So the memory of me still kind of existed. Now, I wasn't anything special when I was there. My show wasn't that great. The position that I held on the executive staff was public service director. I didn't do much in that capacity. But the faculty members remembered who I was just from being in classes. And I think it had a lot to do with a powerful letter suggesting that I could ease all of your headaches and I'll come and take on this big problem. And so they just thought they would give me a shot. I never expected a call. When a whole year goes by and you hear nothing, you hear crickets essentially, nothing's happening. I really didn't think I was getting the job. So when I got the call from the department saying, yeah, we're willing to hire you, I was just, thrilled and excited to be back, and I've been there ever since. And so that's really how it all began.
Cool.
Thank you.
Since the station factory advisor, please tell us the details of your role, paperwork, and required audits.
Okay, well, as faculty advisor, what my real position is I serve as a buffer between the students that work at the station and the administration. So I'm kind of a liaison between the Department of Communication and all the students at the station. One of the things that I was able to do in my time there was the department was using our resources for their classes. And I don't know if you remember this, David, but there was 3 or 4 different classes that didn't have a classroom, and they would come in and use our resources, which was, we like to share. Sharing is good, but they would break our equipment and we wouldn't get any funding for that. So I served as a person who was able to get some grants to get a whole new studio built so that the classes had a classroom that they could go to. And so now WXOU is just for the students who want to be at WXOU. So no classes are in there. So I work between communication and the station to make it good. Administration, if the administration attempts to do things to the radio station, I work between the students for that. And then the bigger role would be I make sure that we are FCC compliant. Right? The FCC is kind of like the radio police. So the Federal Communications Commission, yeah, they make a lot of rules regarding radio and television. And because we are nonprofit, meaning we don't make any money, much like this station that we're on right now, it's a nonprofit community-oriented station. I have to make sure that all of the DJs are aware of the rules that are, along with that, that go with that. So I just make sure that we are operating legally, that everybody understands that. And when things change at the FCC level, I make sure that the students get to know about it, and that we're always sort of working in the right direction.
Yeah. When you said FCC, it made me think about this one song that Family Guy did.
Oh yeah, that's a good episode.
Family
It
Guy.
was about the FCC.
It was about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I believe the episode is called PTV. Yeah, I love that song.
PTV?
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. What were they thinking?
I'm gonna play it for you one day.
Yeah,
Because
it's
you know
funny.
something? It's important. I listen to you all the time. I listen to it every morning. You know why? Because David Taylor is the greatest DJ in the world.
He is. He's quite amazing. We're lucky to have David on our station.
You're like
9 years.
Tell us about the station's plan for those seeking to do a show on air.
Okay. Well, we do offer positions to volunteer positions to community members, students, and alumni. First come, first service for the paying students. But we don't have a ton of, let me rephrase that. We have interest, but a lot of students think they're interested, and then they'll come in, they'll do a couple shows, and then we never see them again. So we have like a high turnover. Alumni are allowed to come. They're always allowed to come back and do a show. And then we also do offer community members. And so David, we consider a community member. We also have a few other shows. You know Maggie Ferguson, right?
Yeah.
Maggie's a community member. Josh is considered alumni. But we have, it's
I'm
a nice
alumni,
variety.
too.
You're both, right? You're an alumni community member.
You know, I would love to go on Extra Radio with David one day and play some music of mine.
Sure thing.
Now, you got a question?
Yes. How has the radio station changed?
Well, it's changed a lot. It's always changing. Because it is a facility that serves a couple purposes, right? One of our purposes is to provide the community with programming that they can't get on commercial radio. So we have a diverse set of programs, and those seem to always be changing. Another thing is that it's supposed to serve as a learning tool or learning environment for the students that operate it. So we have these sort of two things happening, and I like to call it like, I don't know why I call it a hamster wheel, but we get like this progress cycle. So we get students that work there, and then they, really build a good station, and they're at the top, and then they all graduate, and we sort of fall back to the bottom, and we start over again. So we're always, going through this learning cycle that happens, and so because of that, there's always room for improvement, but we always have, sort of good people working at the same sort of time. It's a lot different than when I was a student there. When I was a student there, it was very beatnik, is I guess a good way to put it. A lot of hippie types were in there, and it was just this laid-back place. No one ever turned the lights on. Now it's it operates more like a business. Even though we don't make money, it's got a real professional sort of air to it. But we allow for creativity and diversity and everything like that.
Okay, my turn. Is there a university plan for inclusion? Please, if so, tell us how you met me.
All right. That's a hard question because I'm not exactly sure what the university's definition is for inclusion. I know that they are selective in terms of students who come in. Not everybody gets accepted. I know some universities there's sort of open exception depending on the requirements. WXOU, on the other hand, is a part of the university. We are more inclusive than other organizations or other things at the university. And I met you, I believe I met you because you started on a different show, being a guest on one of our longtime DJs, Josh Yaks, who has a show on Wednesday night called The Wurlitzer, which is a jazz show. And then through, application, through some perseverance, and also through being a part, right, you became a member of WXOU. I think it was my first year, because I've only been there 10 years. So if you've been there 9, then I met you my very first year as a faculty member.
Oh, cool.
At WXOU.
That's cool.
Yep.
Are there fundraising events for the radio station, and if so, what?
We do a variety of fundraising events that have varied success. Sometimes we do things just right on campus, like have bake sales. or have people make cupcakes and try to sell them right on campus.
Yummo.
Other things that we've done have been in relationship with restaurants and things where if you bring a flyer in, 20% of your bill goes to WXOU. We do seek out what's called underwriting, which is like a form of advertising, where companies will provide us with small amounts of money, and in turn we announce their sponsorship of our programming. And then also there's a fundraiser that happens on campus every year. It's a whole university fundraiser. And people are allowed to say, like, I've donated $100. I want 20 of that to go to WXOU. And so every year we get a little bit of money from that. Most of our money or of our resources come from a portion of what's called the student activity fee, which is a portion of tuition. So every student that pays tuition, a small percentage of their tuition goes directly to us, and that's how we're able to fund the operation for the most part. So I would say 90% of our money comes from that, and then maybe 10 comes from donations.
Cool. Thank you, gentlemen. Christine, what is your role determining type of shows and content on the schedule? Because sometimes a show may go for an hour, 2 hours. So how is that done?
Well, I don't have much of a role in that, but I can tell you exactly how it's done. One of the things that I require is fairness, right?
Oh,
that
that's
there's
important.
some standard of fairness for this, that there's some rationale for why someone would get an hour versus 2. And as long as it makes sense to me, I support the student's decision.
Okay.
As far as the type of programming, all I recommend is that we don't have a bunch of shows that sound all exactly like each other, and that our shows don't sound exactly like what you hear on commercial radio. And that's one of the big challenges, because a lot of people want to play what they listen to, and a lot of people listen to regular radio. So if we've got a whole bunch of people wanting to play nothing but Beyonce, that's going to be a problem, right, for us.
Right.
So we try to get people to sort of think outside the box and be creative. And
Play a variety of songs.
right, a variety of songs and a variety of genres. And so it's not just pop music that exists. There's classical, there's jazz, there's Motown, there's
Billboard.
right, there's all kinds of things that
right.
that we have. So I do make sure of that. But when it comes to the actual hiring of our DJs, I let my students do that. Content, I check in and listen in. I make sure that no one's breaking the rules, no swear words.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
By saying some bad word, you're like, what the?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
not
like
just
that.
in the songs. Sometimes our DJs will,
Like-
will say them themselves.
Like-
So I have to make sure that that's not happening.
Yeah, it happens all the
That's
time.
when I step in for content. Is when I hear things like that. That's when, if you get a
Right.
call from me,
Like,
I'm not the person you want to hear
no,
from.
you don't want to
right?
review?
I feel lucky already.
Right.
That's good.
How about music from the 90s?
Music from the 90s, yeah, that's good. We
That's
have
me.
you?
people are thinking that's oldies now,
No, it's
which
not.
is
It's
depressing
90s.
to me.
It's good.
Okay.
I still call it 90s music.
Me too.
Good.
Should what takes place if a show does not meet the WXOU standard? What authority do you have to edit or cancel it?
Okay, well, if they're outright breaking the rules, I will cancel the show. I have the authority to fire people.
You can do that?
I'm not the only one, and I rarely use it. It has to be an extreme case. But there was a situation many, many years ago where 2 students decided to pick up a copy of Rolling Stone magazine, and there was a very risque article in there with content that should not have been on the radio, and they read it verbatim. So it's actually, they were breaking 2 laws. You can't read a magazine on the radio, for one, and the content, regardless of whether they were reading or not, would have been considered obscenity. So I showed up right then, and without even consulting my student staff, I fired them. I mean, beyond, because you're trained, we do train everybody and let them know what's right and wrong, and et cetera. So that kind of thing I cancel. If students are just needing help, right, so maybe they've got some planning and they've got a show and they're running 20 minutes short, or I feel like they're not being creative enough and maybe they're being lazy, we try to work with them to expand on their abilities or find out the root of why the problems are existing and have them develop their talent. Because we do not expect people to walk in talented. It's a process, it's a learning process, and it's not easy. It's pretty hard to go into a studio by yourself and entertain an audience you can't see. right? And so that's one of the challenges of radio is you're alone in technology. When you're driving your car listening, it sounds so natural. It sounds like you're having this conversation with someone even though you're not. For that person that's creating that content, it's a huge challenge because, you know, to them, they're all alone. And so we recognize that, and we try to, you know, help folks, especially if this is what they want to do as a career, really get comfortable in that situation.
What do you do to assist the electric, to assist the electric radio staff?
The elected staff?
Yeah.
Well, I'm basically their go-to person if they need anything. We have a bunch of departments. So we've got a programming department. Those are the people that select the shows. We've got a news department, sports department, promotions, public service, fundraising. So every department that we have is sort of doing their own job. And I just make sure that they're all functioning well and that if they need anything or if they're having problems or if they're fighting with each other, God forbid, that I'm there as a resource to them, a mediator, someone to provide advice.
Cool.
Anyway, so who monitors these programs, various shows, and attends? Are there any other station rules, like you can't say anything mean on the air? So what are the other rules?
There's a lot of rules.
A lot of them?
There's a lot of
Like
rules.
what?
When I saw that question, I thought, yeah, we could spend a half hour in the rules. You know, just some examples. Outside of the obvious things that you think about, like swearing, there's some rules just around radio and television. You have to say the legal ID at the top of every hour. So that would be WXOU 88.3. So if it's noon, you got to remember to say that. If you don't, you're breaking a rule. You can't lie about what you're on. Some people might not think it's funny or not think it's serious, but you can't pretend you're 94.7 all of a sudden and say those call letters instead. That's a major issue. There's rules around politics. So if a politician wants to come into the station, we have certain rules that apply to that. And once you open the door to that, then you have to follow another series of rules for anyone else that wants to be a part of it. There's rules around money and advertising and sponsorships. There's just a ton of rules. And so calls to action. We are a nonprofit station. So like when you listen to, let's say, your favorite radio station, which I'm hoping is 88.3, but if it's not, that's fine. Commercial stations will say things like, hey, check us out at so-and-so event. We're going to be at this concert. We can't say that legally. And so I have to make sure that our DJs are aware of everything that they're doing to make sure that we are operating according to our license, which is a nonprofit license. So those are some examples of rules. There's other rules around telephone calls, hoaxes and pranks, like all these different kinds of things that exist. And I'm happy to answer specific questions if you have them. But yeah, there's a lot of rules.
What do you do to publicize the station on campus and the community?
Well, on campus, there's a variety of ways. I have noticed that people will take our stickers and slap them all over. I consider that vandalization. However, that's something that I've seen. But the legally way that we advertise on campus is we'll get banners and things like that. We try to make as many appearances as we can at events so people know that we exist. We have our website, WXOU.org. That's one of the resources, plus the Facebook and Twitter and all that social media stuff. A lot of our DJs have their own accounts for their own personal shows, flyers, that type of thing. In the community, we try to make appearances as well. We appeared at Arts Beats and Eats and Arts and Apples and things like that. So we do show up to community events with our banner and give away free things. But it's difficult to get your name out there.
Tell us about the federal radio laws for campus radio.
Okay, so campus radio is considered educational radio. And so because of that, we serve a purpose, that we are to be somewhat enlightening to the surrounding community and have an educational bend to us. By doing that, that means we are, we have a diverse sort of freeform programming. Having things that on our station that you can't hear anywhere else is considered educational. We do bring on people that want to do interviews that have something to say. I'm trying to think of some examples of that. We've had famous people do interviews that, like, oh man, what's his name? There's a guy from Full House. Do you guys remember the show Full House?
Sure do.
I do.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right.
I love that show.
The blonde-haired All right. So it wasn't the dad or Uncle Jesse. Who was the third guy?
What's the guy's name?
Dave Coulier.
Thank you.
Dave-
All right.
Dave
So
Coulier.
Dave Coulier is an example. He came on our station. That'd be like having a celebrity on. But local community members, especially right now, there's a lot of health fears going on with things like the enterovirus and Ebola and all of that. So we're trying to bring on people who are like from health systems that can talk to our listeners about some of those concerns and issues. Whenever there's a major issue, we do try to bring someone in and have that be part of our focus. And so that's one of the goals of the news staff, is to keep our news diverse as well. We're not just repeating celebrity gossip. We are, right, trying to gives the audience something that they could really use.
Were you talking about the guy that plays Joey?
Is it Joey? I can never remember their
Yeah,
names.
Joey.
I think it is.
Okay. He's like the cut it out guy, right?
Yeah, I love that part.
Yeah.
I mean, he also did,
Ryan.
he also did Bullwinkle.
Yeah, he did. Right.
Me.
No.
Ryan.
I will.
Oh, my.
So every time I listen to radio stations, I hear these public service announcements come on all the time. Why are they needed?
Public service announcements are kind of like a nice break in the show. So when you watch commercial radio or listen to commercial radio, watch commercial television, there's commercial breaks, right? So it's like Colgate, Taco Bell, whatever. For us, we need breaks too, right? And so because we can't play advertisements, we do the educational version of that, which would be a public service announcement. So the benefit of washing your hands to avoid communicable diseases, why you should get a flu shot, why condoms are important, right? We have a variety of different things, suicide awareness, that type of thing. So that way it serves two purposes. It gives our DJs a nice breather in between songs and talking, and it gives the listeners a nice break as well. And then we also use that time to educate
I'll close the break.
on issues.
Guys, you're under 4 minutes, almost under 4 minutes, so hurry up.
Okay.
I'm gonna close right now.
No closing yet. We got time. How are the federal guidelines monitored, and what happens if these are not followed?
Okay, so federal guidelines are monitored in a few different ways. The FCC could audit for various things. They can come in and check how you're doing, look through your file. The main way would be through listeners. If a listener doesn't like what they hear, they can go on the FCC's website and file a formal complaint. Every complaint gets looked at. And the effects of this are there's a variety of things that can happen. The most common thing is a fine or a forfeiture, which is a monetary payment. So if someone swears on the air and we get a complaint, that's $10,000, right? And so there's each offense has a different price tag.
Well, it's time to close our show. It has been grand meeting you and learning about the local university radio station show and options for those to volunteer and do a show. The steps needed to apply for a show is a positive. Those interested in check it out. We are so happy to meet you. And this is a local campus informational. Our show. It's really important to learn in conclusion of this place. Thanks, and guest Christine. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate being here today, and thank you three for having me.
I'm Ryan this
What's
great.
up? I'm DeWitt Tiller, and you're watching ONTV, CNN, and YouTube.
Bye.
I'm DeWitt Tiller. We go for watching.
My name is Connie Castle. You've been watching on TV, CNN, and YouTube.
That's great. See you later. Bye.
Ciao.